You're watching Adam the Bull on the Bet Rivers Network.
Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. If you're not using the Bet Rivers app, you're missing out. Point spreads, totals, futures, parlays, whatever you're looking for, we've got it covered at Bet Rivers. I got some good deals via Bet Rivers that I'll get to a little bit later in the show. But for now, a lot to get to today. The NFL playoffs this weekend. The Cavs playing a real stinker on Sunday. And we'll look ahead to what they've got this week, including 2 nationally televised games against teams we've just seen them play recently. Baker Mayfield in action last night. I'll get into that. It's all coming up on the latest episode of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. I was involved in a little bit of a crazy road rage incident on, I think it was Friday. This guy, and usually you think it would be me because I'm a kind of person who kind of loses his mind sometimes. But this guy, I'm driving home on Friday, and this guy, so we're driving on, for those who know, if you know, you know, on Clifton Road, driving through Lakewood, first through the west side of Cleveland and then through Lakewood. And my light is going in and out. And I'm driving there, and you know, the speed limit's probably like 35, but I'm going above the speed limit. The guy in front of me is going above the speed limit, so you're kind of keeping up with the traffic. A lot of people do that on that road. And it was funny because, well, not funny, but it was weird because all of a sudden the guy like jams on his brakes in the left lane, and I have to like swerve out of the way. I'm like, what is happening? But then he starts driving again. I'm like, okay, I didn't think anything of it. Maybe he was avoiding an animal. I didn't know what happened. So a couple of lights later, I pull up. The guy goes over to the right. Still don't think anything of it. I look over. The guy's giving me the finger. And I'm like, what is happening here? And then he rolls down his window. So I roll down my window. And he's like, he is just cursing me out. You son of a, blah, 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 blah. You're driving so fast. Blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm behind him. I know. And listen, I don't tailgate when I drive. So maybe he thought I was too close to him. When I drive in New York City, everybody tailgates. You have to. You got no choice. That's just the way it goes. It's unsafe, but that's just the way it is. But here, I long ago, not tailgate. I don't tailgate anybody, ever, when I drive here. And so I wasn't tailgating the guy. I think he lost his mind. He was the one who did the crazy thing on the road, and he was just going bananas. And then finally, a couple blocks later, he pulls off, and he's still giving me the finger. So if anybody knows who this guy is, maybe you've heard the story. Maybe somebody, maybe he's your uncle. He looked older, like a little older than me. He looked like he was in his 60s. He was going crazy. So if you know who this is, tell him, it was me he cursed out, and I don't know what I did still. And somehow I maintained my composure. Like usually in that situation, somebody cursing me out, I would have been like, I would start screaming and blah, blah, blah. Only thing I said was, you made the crazy move. That's how my Friday went. But anyway, let's get to some sports stuff. But before we do that, I want to let you know that Bet Rivers Square is still going on. Players can play same-game parlays on college football games and NFL games to earn squares. Our exclusive Squares game offers additional chances at profit boosts, bonus bets, and many $10,000 jackpots. National championship game coming up a week from today. The NFL playoffs continue tonight, and, of course, with 4 games next weekend. So a lot to still get involved with here. Some great deals at Bet Rivers. Let's, before we look ahead, as I mentioned, next weekend, let's look back to this weekend. Overall, a disappointing slate of NFL playoff games. They were all one-sided except for last night, where Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers fall short against the Washington Commanders. I'm not going to use this opportunity to pile on Baker. He had a hell of a season. He only threw 18 passes. Frankly, the Buccaneers didn't have the ball much. Baker didn't play a particularly great game yesterday. He did have 2 touchdowns, but he had a big turnover late in the game on the fumbled snap, or not snap, but the handoff that was on him. And that was obviously big because the defense had just stopped Washington, and then Washington gets the ball back and takes the lead. Now Baker drove him down to try to regain the lead, but they had a 2nd and 1, and I think the 12, and then the Bucs had to settle for a field goal. So that the fumble by Baker was huge. It'll be easy to pile on, and in the past I've been one that's been taking joy in piling on Baker, but I have a lot of respect for how he's handled the situation. He's done a good job. He's matured, and so I'm not going to pile on. Yeah, he's a big reason why they lost, no doubt. That fumble was a killer, and the Bucs had just taken the momentum because Washington had a long drive. They were down 4. They didn't kick the field goal, which I understood. They stopped them on downs, and then to just give it right back like Baker did, obviously was a killer. And Washington still had a hard time scoring. It was 4th down where they get it to Terry McLaurin to give the lead. Now, as I said, Baker drove him down, but they had a 2nd and 1 at the Washington 12-yard line. Baker tries to sneak it, can't get it. They give it to Irving. He loses yards, so they got to kick the field goal to tie. They get it, but it left the door open for Washington, and they took advantage. And that game-winning field goal, as time expired, Zane Gonzalez, another former Brown, that ball doinked the upright, but luckily for Washington, it goes through. It was really impressive. I don't think this is about killing Baker. I really think it's about crediting Jaden Daniels. It's tough for a rookie to win. I know we saw C.J. Stroud win last year in the first round, and I would suspect Washington would lose in the second round. You never know. But Jaden Daniels, 24-35, 268, and 2 touchdowns. Had some yards on the ground, too, and it's impressive. Very impressive what he did. The Bucs were a 3-point favorite. I had picked the Bucs, and obviously Washington comes through. The rest of the first round was terrible. Kudos to the Texans. I did not think they were going to win, and not only did they win, but they absolutely smoked the Chargers. Justin Herbert, once again, terrible in the postseason. Not that he's been there very often. Joe Mixon had a big game. He had struggled at the end of the year, but he had a nice game. And C.J. Stroud, who had struggled at times this season, played really well. The one, and by the way, so Z, who produces the podcast, confirmed for me from week 7 through week 18 of the playoffs, or I'm sorry, let's see, it was 10 weeks. No, from week 7 to week 18 of the regular season, I went 43-17 with my picks here on Bet Rivers. Every week I tweet out my picks. I compete against Mike Francesa. I compete against Brandon Stokely and others. And I went 43-17, which is about 75% hit rate. Not quite, like 70%. I was sizzling hot. And, of course, first week of the playoffs, I let you all down by going 2-3. And what I really am annoyed about, because I had the Bills covering. Okay, that was easy. I had the Eagles covering. I had the Bucs. I lost that. But, okay, I get what I was doing there. Certainly get what I was doing taking the Chargers. But I can't believe I took the Steelers. That was really a terrible job. I thought the Ravens would win, obviously. But I thought the Steelers would cover. And I let the fact that the Steelers have played well against the Ravens blind me stupidly to the fact that the Steelers were done. It was obvious the last few weeks of the regular season that they were not going to be able to keep up with Baltimore. Terrible job. I let you down, folks. I apologize for that. And I had the over on Lamar's yards on my passing yards on my parlay, and I should have known he would not go over because the Ravens would get a big enough lead that he wouldn't be throwing the ball much. He played great. I mean, this is really one of Lamar's best performances in the postseason. He is 16-21, 175, and 2 touchdowns. He had 81 yards on 15 rushes. Derrick Henry, I mean, just a monster. And he's going to be the difference. I'm not ready to pick the I hate that the Ravens and Bills are playing next week, honestly, because I would like that to be the AFC Championship game. I think they're the 2 best teams in the AFC. I know it's stupid to count out the Chiefs, and I'm certainly not counting out the Chiefs. But I hate, listen, I'm a fan of Lamar Jackson. I'm a fan of Josh Allen. They're two of the 4 best quarterbacks in the league. And unfortunately, one of them is going to lose next week. And then we're going to hear the same bullshit about how they can't win in a big spot. And I hate that because my guess is it won't be either one of theirs fault why they lose. Now, to be fair, Josh Allen has played overall better in the playoffs than Lamar Jackson. But this is the first year that Lamar Jackson has had significant talent around him. In fact, Lamar's got more talent around him than Josh Allen does in terms of the skilled position players. There's no doubt about it. Now, one big difference, though, is Zay Flowers, who is the best receiver on the Ravens. He didn't play this past week, got hurt against the Bengals last week. I don't know what his status is for the game, so he didn't have as much talent around him because Zay Flowers is phenomenal, but obviously they didn't need him against Pittsburgh. It's probably a bigger deal against Buffalo. But Isaiah Likely, who I liked his over on his yardage, which I had at the parlay, he's a factor. But they Lamar spreads it around. Nobody had more than 4 receptions, and the guy with 4 receptions was Justice Hill, who only had 13 yards, but obviously did have a receiving touchdown. Rashad Bateman makes a couple plays a game. Mark Andrews, non-factor, 2 catches, 27 yards, didn't do much of anything. But I should have known it. I like the Vikings tonight. We got them up to 2.5-point favorite at the Rams. This game was not part of our official Bet Rivers picks for the week, but I'll tell you now, I like the Vikings. I know Sam Darnold played poorly last week, and I thought that might lead to a lot of money being bet on the Rams, especially because the Rams are at home. Well, the Rams are the home team, but they're not at home, obviously, with everything going on in L.A., which is just hideous. They're playing Glendale at the Cardinal Stadium, and so technically the Rams are the home team. Even in L.A., I don't know that the Rams would have had more fans than the Vikings there. We'll see. It's not really home field, and that's part of the reason, obviously, the line changed. Although I don't know that, the Rams have much of a home field advantage anyway. Looking ahead to next weekend a little bit, the Texans-Chiefs game will be the first game of the week, Saturday at 4:30. The Chiefs, we have them right now, -8 at Bet Rivers. The Saturday night game is Washington at Detroit. We got the Lions as an 8.5-point favorite in that one. Sunday at 6:30. Well, the second game is at 6:30. That's interesting. The Bills will host the Ravens. And right now, we got the Bills as a 1-point favorite at home. And then it'll be either the Vikings or the Rams at the Eagles. I think that game will be at 3 or 3:30 on Sunday. So there you go. And kudos to Ohio State for just lambasting Texas. Lambasting is definitely too strong. It felt like they were in control, but the reality is it was 21-14 before that fumble, that sack fumble touchdown. I'm sure some of you have seen the videos online with that play, like to the music from Titanic and some other things, but an incredibly great play by Jack Sawyer, who I'm sure is flying up draft boards and is now going to be a first-round pick. But Ohio State, I got to think, is going to win the national championship. Texas is the only team that really gave them a game. Obviously, they destroyed Tennessee and Oregon. And kudos to Notre Dame for getting here. But I can't see Notre Dame playing with Ohio State. I just don't see it. But week from tonight, we'll see. I just don't. I think that Texas and Oregon were maybe the only teams that had a shot of beating Ohio State. And listen, I killed Ryan Day all year. I'm not a fan of him personally because of some things he's done. But I'm certainly got to give him credit for the job he has done here. And we'll see how the championship game goes. But even if they do somehow lose, I'm not going to say he should be fired. I mean, he's done enough here. But I'll be very surprised ultimately if they lose. Ohio State is an 8-point favorite in this game. I'll be surprised if they don't cover and take care of business and win their third national championship of the century. The Cavs had been 20-1 at home and 33-4 overall going into last night's game. The Pacers really dominated this game outside of the second quarter. The Cavs made a good run in the second quarter, and at the half, the Cavs actually had the lead. They were up, 53-40, something like that, a big lead. It was close. It was close for, I should say they dominated. They dominated the second half. The Cavs only really played well in the second quarter, but neither team shot the ball particularly well in the first quarter. Cavs played great in the second quarter, and then that was it. The second half, it was like the Cavs couldn't make a shot. 40 points the entire second half. The Cavs under 100 for the first time this year. That was the worst they shot. 27% from three. It was just bad across the board. Donovan Mitchell's obviously in a shooting slump right now. He was 3 of 7 for three. Darius was 3 of 9. The starting lineup went 11 for 23 from three. That's actually pretty good. Wait, no, that can't be right. Can they be 11 for 20? No. I'm sorry. 8 for 23. Yeah, that makes more sense. Starting line was 8 for 23, and the bench was 3 for 18 from three. Very poor. But anyway, the game was over. The Cavs played deep bench later in the game. Tyson, Tristan Thompson, and Craig Porter Jr. all got in there. You just got to flush it. I know I'm guessing there's a segment of our fan base that one terrible game where they can't shoot makes you panic. What's funny is the Pacers didn't shoot particularly well from three either. They only shot 31% from three, which is not really good. It was just one of those nights that you got to flush. For whatever reason, the Cavs didn't have it. With about 5 minutes to go in the game, I just shut it off. I mean, it's really the first time all year I've done that. I was like, all right, this is just, any other game they've had struggles, I'd be like, all right, they're going to come back and win this. But the Pacers the Cavs just couldn't score there in the fourth quarter and for a while. And I was just like, all right, I'm done. We're done for the night. They're not coming back and winning this game. I think it's a blip on the radar. Don't get panicky about it. I know here in Cleveland we tend to get panicky at the first sign of trouble. They had won 1 million games in a row. Yes, it was an ugly game. The offense disappeared for the first time. They'll get their revenge against Indiana. Indiana and Atlanta, I believe. I don't think the Cavs had played Indiana before last night. Yeah, Indiana and Atlanta, the only teams that the Cavs have played and not beaten. The Cavs could stop that both before the end of the month. They play the Hawks later in the month, but Indiana tomorrow night in Indiana. The game's on TNT, and then Thursday, Oklahoma City tries to get its revenge against the Cavs. Cavs at Oklahoma City Thursday, 7:30 on TNT. Cavs on the road, 3 straight games and 5 of their next 6. They'll play Minnesota next weekend, at Houston and Philly next week. 1 home game against Phoenix in between. But interesting schedule. You've already had 2 tough games against Oklahoma City and Indiana. You split those. And the stretch of good teams continues with, as I just mentioned, Indiana, then Oklahoma City, Minnesota. I know Minnesota's and Phoenix, who the next 2 games after that have not been great, but they're both certainly dangerous teams. And then after that, you got Houston. Philly stinks, but Houston again. So, and Dallas, Boston, playing both those teams the first week of February. So, a very challenging part of the schedule. The Cavs will probably drop a few games here and there, but it's hard to win every single game. But I'm not down on this team at all. They had a bad night. These things are going to happen. It feels like it can't because there've been almost none of these. The leading scorer last night, by the way, Darius Garland. But again, I mean, he shot well overall. He just couldn't, like the rest of the team, couldn't knock down a 3. Evan Mobley had 16 and 12. Jared Allen 11 and 9. Donovan Mitchell had 19, but as I mentioned, struggled to score. The Cavs did get 30 rebounds from their starting front court of Allen, Mobley, and Dean Wade. Wade 3 points and 9 rebounds in this one. So, but not much more to say about this game. We'll flush it. You play the Pacers again tomorrow and the Thunder. So it should be still a very fun week for the Cavs this week. All right. Thanks to Z for producing today. Thanks to all of you for watching and listening. Next podcast will be Wednesday, working on a guest, so we'll see about that. Dustin and I Thursday live, and I'll be on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show every day this week. No, I will not be on Friday, actually, Monday to Thursday this week. So until then, we'll talk to you next time. Where else but right here in the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. See you, everybody.